Hi, my name is Chris Feldt, and this is the beginning of my series about the history of the land that is bent tree, covering a period from 1805 to 1970 approximate. This is part one, the overview. Here's a timeline that shows the establishment of the 1805 Federal Road, going all the way through the start of the bent tree development. Now, in 1805, there was a treaty made between the American government and the Native American Indians that lived in the territory to allow passage along their road, moving in a northwestern pattern from near Savannah all the way up through Tennessee. And this section of the road that I'm looking at here is in the Cherokee Territory before Cherokee County existed. And you'll notice that there's Daniels and Harnages and Carmel Station and Loves. And to give you some idea, Daniels is just adjacent to Highway 53 prior to Sandy Bottoms and the Tate Mansion on the opposite side of the road. And Harnages is the same property where the Tate Mansion is today. Harnages was the seat of Harnageville by Ambrose Harnage, and eventually became the first county courthouse of the Cherokee County that was formed in 1832. So in 1832, the land lottery happened, and they divided up all the land in the northwestern part of our state from the Cherokee Territory into segments. And this map actually specifically covers the land where Bent Tree is today. So before there was Pickens County, which came much later, in 1832 there were the two counties where our land falls, Cherokee County and Gilmer County. So all of what is now Bent Tree really fell within Gilmer County, but there was no Pickens at the time. Now Pickens now goes down as far as Harnages and Daniels on this map and stops short of Ellijay, but this is where Pickens County later became. So prior to Pickens County, in 1849, John Hendricks and John Darnell, that's Mr. Hendricks' wife here, they went out to the California Gold Rush and they hit it big. And they came back and they bought lots and lots of land extending from basically where Cove Road is today all the way up through Sharptop Mountain. John Darnell and Mr. Hendricks bought most of the land for about a quarter an acre. This map here in 1853 is just kind of showing the newly districted Pickens County. Here's a map from 1869 of our area, and you'll see Burnt Mountain at the top and Sharptop Mountain up there on the left. You'll see Tate's Sawmill on this map. Tate's Sawmill is across Grandview over by Songbird near the back gate and Sassafras Mountains. So Grassy Knob here is really Mount Oglethorpe, and this is our district. So, in 1870, roughly, Sally Doss bought a couple hundred acres here within Bent Tree. We all know about her chimney. And in 1877, there were a number of moonshine wars in our county. We even made the cover of Harper's Weekly for what happened here in North Georgia. The gentleman on the right is a Night Rider or a Honest Man's Friend and Protector group member. There were incidents on Sharptop Mountain, on Jonas Mountain. A lot of the people that were involved in the moonshine wars were actually in our mountains with their moonshine stills. The government got involved, and later, because of the interactions between the revenuers, the moonshiners, and the military, The Posse Comitatus Act was founded later to prevent the Army from intervening in the way that they did here in Pickens County in the late 1800s. Mind you, after the Civil War, this is about a little more than a decade after the Civil War ended, there wasn't a lot of opportunities here in North Georgia for people to make good money, and moonshine was one of those ways. I mentioned John Darnell earlier. This is the 1903 Pickens County map by J.W. Henley. You'll notice that there's a Darnell district, there's a Penley district, like Penley Circle, and Grassy Knob. Now, you'll see on this map here, C. Griffith, Caleb Griffith. His home is still today off of Cove Road, across from the Dollar General. So to give you some kind of, I guess, an idea of the scape, Mole Mountain is here, Hendricks Mountain is here, and our other mountains are here, but this is our land back in 1903. Again, named after John Darnell, this district. So, in 1910, this man here, Charles Whittington, his wife Laura, his two daughters Gladys and Emily, they moved here from Atlanta. Charles was the Cuban consul for Atlanta, and they bought thousands of acres, what is inside of Bent Tree now, and they had land development ideas. And here's a 1911 newspaper ad from the Atlanta Georgian and News. Any man, by paying 8 1/3 cents a day, can own a farm just 2.5 hours ride from Atlanta. That's how long it took back in the day. In the beautiful sapphire country of North Georgia, 4,000 feet above the sea. He was wrong by about 800 feet there. Recognized as one of the healthiest spots in the world, and world famous for its apples and poultry. We did have a lot of apple orchards in the land that is Bent Tree back in the day. The time to buy is now. C.H. Whittington, owner. Charles Howard Whittington, one of the first land developers apart from the Darnells and Hendrickses in our area. Now, he mentions in this ad that his land is located near the famous 6,000 acre preserve of Colonel Sam Tate. He's going to come in later, but by this point in 1911, Colonel Sam Tate, who was probably around 51, already owned 6,000 acres adjacent to the land that the Whittingtons bought. Sally Doss, yes, Our Lady from our chimney, died in 1913 and is buried not far away from the entrance to Bent Tree at Long Swamp Baptist Church. And this is a photo of her tombstone. After she passed, there was a courtroom sale, and Clay Paget and his wife bought Sally's property in 1914. They were related to Sally Doss, I believe, through the mother's side. So here's a photo of Clay Paget's house. Now this one, if you talk to the relatives of Clay Paget and the Pagets that live in the county today, they'll tell you that this house was beneath what is now Lake Tamarack, kind of near the beach over by Padset Court. You see Sharp Top Mountain in the background and the double chimney. Going forward, here's a map of Pickens County in 1915. You'll notice that Talking Rock is here now instead of Love's. Talking Rock actually became the land that is Love's. Jasper, some other places, Tate now is there instead of Harnageville and Harnages. And some places that you may or may not have heard of, like Jerusalem, Ludville, which is still part of it, Talmadge, Mineral Springs, Jockey, Nelson. Doug Road is still there, but we don't call it that anymore, but that's kind of on the way out of the county as we're headed down towards Huddle House, etc. Here's a map from 1915. One point of note, Johntown here is an abandoned town, and there still are signs for Johntown out in the middle of the forest. This road right here isn't real far from where Steve Tate Highway is. So, the state performed a survey of the area In 1926, it's known as a Tate-Nelson quadrangle. And most of the land that is within Bentry, not all of it, some of it here in the north that's not part of this quadrangle falls in a quadrangle north of us, is here. So this 1926 map, these black dots show the locations of homes, these two being near Admin, this one being near Valley View, and the old road, which is not the path of Little Pine Mountain, but is the path along where the golf course and golf cart path goes, up through here and comes out up and through where the dam is today, where Long Swamp Creek used to flow entirely. So this is Lake Tamarack, and on the outside of this we have a house near where the water plant is today, and some houses up in the northern section kind of near Crippled Oak. But this is our old map. Sharptop Church, incidentally, same place. Long Swamp Church, still there today. Here's a three-dimensional version of that map that I made, just kind of showing the elevation changes as you come up through Bentry, through the roads, past Admin, through the golf course, and over toward the dam. Going forward, we spoke about Colonel Sam Tate before, born in 1860, major land developer, owner of the Georgia Marble Company, the company that put 60% of the marble in Washington, D.C. You see the old remnants of the company on the Marble Tour, or as you drive along there through Marble Hill. He, in 1929, decided to build the Tate Mountain Estate. And he bought over 10,000 acres of land at a value of $1929 that cost about $1 million back in the day. And on this map, you should notice that there's the Conahaney Lodge, the Oglethorpe Monument, Lake Sequoia, the Dude Ranch. We'll discuss those things later. 1929, incidentally, being in the middle of the Great Depression, was kind of a bad time to build a 10,000 acre estate. So here's the Oglethorpe dedication in 1930. This was in October, and the monument that you now see downtown in Jasper was there on top of then Grassy Knob, and they changed it to Mount Oglethorpe that year, named after the founder of the colony of Georgia, General Oglethorpe. Going forward, the very first Dude Ranch, there were a couple, that was part of the Tate Mountain Estates, came into existence in 1930-1931. These are the Dude Ranchers here, quite a big group of them, going for a trail ride along Lake Sequoia, which is north of 136, north of Burnt Mountain. I should point out that this German Shepherd here belonged to this lady here. This lady is Blink Drummond, and she's the lady that ran the Dude Ranch for years. It's quite a colorful character, and I'll get more on her in later presentations. So, in 1933 to 1934, Civilian Conservation Corps Camp P-77, the P stood for private because it was on private land, 1449, operated here in the land that was known as Bentry at the site of the former Dude Ranch located near the admin building and hole 6 of our current golf course. And on this document that I found in the National Archives, which is an inspection report from our camp, you'll notice that the work project supervisor is a gentleman by the name of E.C. Perot. E.C. Perot is famous internationally for being a compiler of folk songs, American folk songs in particular, but was also the county surveyor of Pickens County, was Colonel Sam Tate's personal surveyor, had a cabin here near the golf course back in the day when there was a Dude Ranch here, and was the educational supervisor for the CCC boys. He's a Harvard grad, spoke 6 languages fluently, and taught the guys French, English, mechanical engineering, forestry, mathematics, you name it, he taught it. And this photo here is from his property in Talking Rock. This is his mailbox, the one he built, his mailbox building, and that still stands today on private property. His granddaughter, Janet Vardaman, lives inside of Bentry today. Now, E.C. Perot stands for Eber Carl Perot, and this is his map that he hand drew of our area, starting in Jasper and Tate, working up past Mole Mountain, showing the Dude Ranch location. And this path here is pretty close to the path that the road goes up Little Hendricks Mountain with the sharp turn, past Hendricks Peak, eventually past Big Stump to Mount Oglethorpe. And you'll notice that there's a Thunderstruck here, which is now the name of a street off of Chestnut Cove. And up further south, Sassafras, north Sassafras, and of course Burnt Mountain, Burrell Top, where the location of the Conahaney Lodge was. So here is a map of the Appalachian Trail starting from the Southern Guide to the Appalachians. And on this map, because the Appalachian Trail used to start at Mount Oglethorpe, the approach trail would take people up the route that became known as Bentry Drive, would eventually take them to the Dude Ranch, follow the roads, up Hendricks Mountain, up to Oglethorpe, and then they would backtrack a few miles to Mount Oglethorpe to the statue. And the dotted line here is the Appalachian Trail back from 1930 to 1957. Now, we mentioned the lodge before on top of Burnt Mountain. The Conahaney Lodge was made out of chestnut logs. It was beautiful. It was kind of the showcase of the pinnacle of Tate Mountain Estates. It had 20 bedrooms, fieldstone for a base, giant fireplaces inside and out, marble fixtures in the bathrooms. And up here is Lake Sequoia. This is from a postcard. Here's an actual black and white photo of the Conahaney Lodge on top of Burnt Mountain. Here's a photo of the actual fire that burned down the lodge in 1946. I've been to the ruins of the lodge. One of these three chimneys is still standing and is at least 40 feet high, just beneath the tops of the trees atop of Burnt Mountain. It's amazing. So Frank Spratlin was a gentleman that used to be a pretty prominent businessman, and he hung out at the Conahaney Lodge with his son, Herbert. And after the lodge burned down, he was aware, because of the elevation, Burnt Mountain's about 3,100 feet. It would make a great place for a radio tower, and he worked for WGST, and he made a petition for an application for a radio tower for WGST, which was approved in 1947. Here's that radio tower on the map. You'll see Lake Sequoia here. This is Burnt Mountain. This radio tower was the very first radio station from WGST that broadcast rock and roll music to Atlanta in the 1950s, not far from our land. Here's a census map of our area from 1950, and here's the road coming up what would be Bentry Drive. This would be Rick Jasper's house. This would be the two houses. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Rick Jasper's house would be down here. These are the houses near the entrance of Bentry and Admin. This would be most of the path, a little different up Hendricks Mountain, back to the Oglethorpe Mountain. You can see, if you count the little squares back in the area, we maybe had about 9 homes inside of the land that is Bentry in 1950. So our Dude Ranch, according to the Pickens Progress, went away. There was a large fire on Christmas Eve in 1951. They were using the property at that time, which was owned by the Georgia Marble Company, for, I guess, a chicken ranch, and about 4,500 chickens burnt up when that went away. So here's a map from 1958, and I'm just pointing out that the general flow of the roads was the same back in the day. There weren't many roads in the land that is Bentry, except near our current entrance and up Hendricks Mountain. Little Pine Mountain and our other roads were not around on this map. So, I mentioned Frank Spratlin and the Conahaney Lodge and his son Herbert. Herbert, aka H. Dean Spratlin, was a naval commander, then much later a successful businessman, was into land development, and in 1969 his company, Spratlin and Associates, partnered with Liberty Corporation, yes, the Liberty insurance people that you see the commercials from, and they financed and built Bent Tree. In 1969, 1970, we had the Articles of Incorporation from Bent Tree, and this photo was taken of our gate, the front gate, as it looked with our split rail fence in 1973. Thank you very much for watching.